Welcome to the Spaghetti Wall podcast, where we dive into life.
Both the messy parts and the moments of joy, and everything in between. I'm Jason Wilcox, licensed clinical social worker.
And I'm Dr. Thaen Saelee, a licensed clinical psychologist.
So today we're going to be talking about love languages. It's a popular topic and a lot of people discuss it, and it even gets brought into a lot of my couple sessions. I'll have couples bring it up saying, what do I think about love languages? Or they'll bring it up about what their love language is.
Today, I think the focus is really looking at the misuse of love languages and how we can put expectations on others based on learning about our love language. And that can really create tension, inappropriate miscommunication of how these things need to show up or should be showing up, right? That's should as in quote unquote should.
Yeah, don't should me to death. Anyways, I'm not a big fan of love languages, and I think you like them though, right?
I do like them. I feel like when they are in use in communication and creating shared goals within the dynamic, I think it's good. I definitely see your point, Jason, where couples do come in and they fight because they're like, well, my love language is, acts of service and she doesn't do anything for me.
Yeah. Well, let's break that down for a second so all of our audience understands why I personally am not a big fan. So the reason why I'm not a big fan of love languages is because of what happens with them. In a lot of relationships, what happens is we have negative core beliefs. And when we get into relationships, our negative core beliefs become much more enhanced and heightened. And then when we're in that relationship, not only are they getting heightened, we start getting them all kind of intertwined inside the relationship where one's negative core belief will spur off of another. So it creates a lot of reactivity whenever these things are triggered. If you're not familiar with what a negative core belief is, I'd encourage you to go listen to our podcast on that topic because it's a filter in the mind that says something negative about self. So let's say someone has a negative core belief of, I'm unlovable. And here we are talking about love languages, and one, like you said, Thaen, of acts of service. So if my love language is acts of service and I have a negative core belief that says I'm unlovable, what's going to happen is if you don't show love that way and you're not showing acts of service, I'm going to start projecting on you that you don't love me because you're not doing those behaviors. And so then it becomes this problem where I make my partner responsible for my emotions and my negative core belief. When we displace that responsibility, it puts the other partner in a defensive stance, and we're not dealing with what actually is creating the pain, the feeling of being unlovable. It's not about our partner, it's actually about self. So the love languages, when we apply those in relationships, it can feed that negative core belief, make it worse, and cause problems in relationships.
I see that in couples. I hear it from each partner when I work with folks. And I think that extra part of reassurance seeking we try to have in our relationship naturally occurs. That's a trap you're describing, right? When we are with someone or in any kind of dyadic partnership, whether it's like with a best friend, with a colleague, like we want to feel value. We want to feel like they care about us or that we have worth, we're seen, and it's reciprocated. I think in any kind of close bonded relationship, we are reassurance seeking. A lot of time it is based on their actions, behaviors, what they do for us and what we see. For those who have attachment trauma, we often are very hypervigilant at making X and Y equals Z. If she's not doing this for me, then it means this. Exactly what Jason was saying. And these are some thinking traps we got to look for.
Again, what's happening is creating a divide in the relationship. It's one thing to go, okay, I have a certain love language. What I normally teach clients is to get away from love language and move more to preferences. If you look at the love languages, there's a good chance you have preferences in all the different ones. Look at your preferences on how to engage in a relationship and things that you enjoy. Move away from attaching that to the love language, because as soon as you say it's a love language, it's easier to attach it to the negative core belief of saying, if you are or aren't doing these behaviors, you therefore do or don't love me, versus saying, hey, I have a preference. My preference is when you do things for me, it feels really good. But if they don't or they forget, it's okay because they still love you. The act of service wasn't about whether they loved you or not. The act of service was about the ways we engage in the relationship. So when we disconnect those two things and we recognize, hey, here's preferences. It's healthy to talk about preferences. It's healthy to look at what is my partner's preferences so I can learn and try to see how I can meet them there. And what are my preferences? Recognizing these preferences, whether they happen or don't, isn't about someone loving you or you being important to them or you being good enough for them.
Both can exist, because the negative core belief being I'm not lovable. If this person doesn't do X, Y, and Z for me, then they don't love me. We have to sit with and practice that even without this person doing this for me, they can still love me. I am still lovable even without these quote unquote love languages being shown to me. People show love in so many different ways. And I know there's 5 identified love languages, but there's so many other ones that aren't talked about. So I think it's important that we pause and go, just because they're not doing this, they can still love me. I really like what you said, Jason, about just taking away the label of love language, because some other people's negative core belief might be, I'm not worthy. So then you can label these like worthiness language, right? I feel worthy when you rub my back. I feel worthy when you cook me dinner. It's not just love languages. It could be worthy languages. It could be belonging language, right? When I'm invited to a party, I feel like I belong. So I think it's important that we identify how we feel connected and how we feel seen within a partnership, and just note that, hey, when you do this, I feel this very much. And at the same time, even if you don't do it, I have to believe when you tell me you love me, or you tell me I'm worthy or I belong, because one can exist even in the absence of what we believe, and we convince ourselves that this only can be true if these actions are there, which is pretty rigid and inflexible.
Yeah. And again, there's a good chance if you're taking it personal or you have that strong reaction inside, that's just a sign that you're actually operating from a negative core belief. And if you project it onto your partner saying, oh, they don't love me enough because they're not doing these behaviors, that's you projecting your negative core belief, and you're displacing emotional responsibility on someone else. That's not their responsibility. Now, again, we can talk about preferences, and if you remove the negative core beliefs with the behaviors, you're going to have a far more functional conversation with somebody. There's also the flip side that the more you kind of embrace what we're talking about here, you're going to have a far more functional relationship, because you can also start saying that it's okay for you to advocate for things that you want. What happens in relationships sometimes is people will feel the need to get certain things from their partner, but they won't tell them. For example, something I really love, a preference I have, is I love physical closeness. I love to cuddle. I love to hold hands. That's just me. If I want to cuddle and we're not, it's on me to talk about it or ask for it or go cuddle. It's not up to my partner to make sure that need is being met. It's great when they notice. It's helpful and nice. I enjoy it. At the end of the day, if that's something I really enjoy, that's a preference I have, it's on me to advocate for it. And it's not about my partner loving me or not loving me, or me being good enough or not good enough if I'm not getting some of these preferences.
I love that example. We have a pretty long, big couch in our living room, and I always prefer sitting in the corner. A lot of times, Jason will be sitting in the middle, and I will choose the corner, and he will look at me and go, oh, come sit closer to me. And he'll scoot closer to me sometimes. When I remember, I'll sit by him, or I say, hey, babe, I'm sitting in the corner. Come join me. It's not that I don't love him or I don't want to be near him. I just forget.
Right. That's the important piece to remember, understanding that when you feel the reaction, that's your negative core belief. It's a filter in your mind. Getting upset with your partner or telling them they're treating you like you're not worth something or that they don't love you, that's you projecting the negative core belief and displacing emotional responsibility. If you own the emotion, you're responsible for it, and get rid of the negative core belief, you can get to a place of advocating for self, talking about preferences, and being assertive for your needs. Another one, I know some people struggle with this one, but some people really like words of validation. The cool part is your partner, when you're in a loving relationship, I just want to acknowledge that there are some relationships that there is toxicity and stuff, but when you're in a loving relationship, your partner loves you. If there's someone that's not their strength to use words of validation, you may not hear them, they may not say them, but they're in their mind. If you enjoy that, and that's a way that you have a preference on connecting with someone, if you get rid of the negative core belief and you recognize what's happening, it's okay to ask the person for the information in their mind. It already exists. It's okay to say, hey, could you let me know how beautiful I am today? Whatever you want to ask for, it's okay to ask for the information because it's there. You're just advocating for your needs.
I have a real life example to share with the audience. I come from a culture where my parents didn't have a lot of words of affirmation or praise, so I struggled with that. So sometimes we'll be driving and Jason will look over to me and say, "Do I make you happy, babe?" And I'm like, "Absolutely, you make me happy, babe." These are examples of moments where I catch myself going, I really don't express myself verbally. That wasn't the way I was raised, but I love that Jason helps me with doing that. He just asks, "Do I make you happy?" And that's him reaching out to get that affirmation. You took accountability for that and you just asked.
Right. And that's the important piece of making sure if you're using love languages as a justification, whether you're doing it on purpose or not, to enhance your negative core beliefs, it's going to create rifts.
It won't give you what you're wanting to approach the conversation. It will feel very aggressive and abrasive, and I would say violent in some sense, because it's almost like you're not giving me this. You're kind of waving your hand at your partner saying, I deserve this. You should be giving me this, and you don't. Your partner's going to feel defensive. They're going to feel shut down. Consequence that really is painful is they're going to start to feel like they are not enough.
Right.
That no matter what it is they're doing, they can't make you believe that they care so much about you and they love you so much because you're demanding to feel love in a certain way that may not be aligned with how they show up in the world and how they show up for you.
Even though they do love you to the very core, but you keep saying they don't because they're not doing a certain behavior that you want. That is your quote unquote love language.
So we really encourage you guys to pause and step away from using, or what some people would say, weaponizing these love languages to turn them into expectations. It's like Jason was saying, these are my preferences. And can we make room to accept when it's not there all the time from our partner because they just don't show up that way?
If someone really twists my arm and says, is there any value in the love languages at all? I will give in that there is value. I'm just concerned because people use it too often to feed a negative core belief that causes problems in relationships. But I do think understanding the different love languages, understanding what's in them so that you kind of learn and understand yourself is important. I'm just cautious calling it the love languages just because of my experience with couples. But understanding how you enjoy a relationship, how you like to be connected is really valuable information. It's valuable when you're in a relationship to have those conversations. It's also really valuable if you're not in a relationship yet to learn and understand what you like so you can be clear and upfront about that before you get in a relationship. When you're out there looking for a partner, you can have these conversations ahead of time. You got to really look at, do you guys match well? Does it not match well? It still can, but these are things that are important to look at. So in that realm of understanding those preferences that you have and learning what's in all of those can be beneficial and helpful when you're looking at having relationships.
I definitely also want to throw it out there that love languages don't apply to just romantic relationships. You see this in parent-child relationships. You see this in how best friends and close folks in your life prefer to receive connection and bonding, right? If my 5-year-old is tugging at me, trying to get my attention, he's probably wanting some quality time with me or physical touch. He loves being tickled. Sometimes your best friend might say, "Hey, come over. I'm just folding laundry. You want to like parallel play or something?" And so we see this in all kind of relationships, not just romantic relationships.
Very true. Are there other benefits that you feel like there are of the love languages and for people to understand them?
I think I like that it opens up the discussion and it makes people aware that there are ways that they are looking for reassurance in the way they feel love. So I do see that benefit. Just to be able to name that there are things that people look for, behaviors and words of affirmation where people feel connected, feel seen. I think it just opens up the conversation for people to be aware that there are certain ways they believe other people show love to them, receive love. I think that was the thing I got out of reading the book. In the way we give love and show love to people we care about, we also expect and want that reciprocated. That might be how I also receive love in the way I give love. So, say my husband has no care for gifts, but my love language is gift giving. I can give him all the gift that I want to do, but that doesn't mean he's receiving it as love. That's the way I give love and receive love. So that makes me aware. But I can't assume that just because that's what I'm doing, he's picking that up and he's going, "Oh, she loves me so much. She's always buying me things." No, I spoke to many couples and individuals where they're saying, "Yeah, that's not my thing, and I don't care for that. So I don't really see how that's going to make me feel love if this is not the way I receive love." Having people become more aware of the way they show up in relationships and their expectations and what they assume or not assume in the way we receive and give, but also I think overall just how we expect to connect with others. And sometimes, as I said, it's not realistic. It's hard not to take it personal. It's about my connection with this person. It's about how I feel present with this person. It's about me not getting what I need or what I want and what I've asked for. How do I not take that personal? As Jason is saying, it relates to a personal negative core belief about ourselves. So if we can take away all the fluff about this person doing this or that or not doing this or that, and we just go, what is my negative core belief that I believe here? And it is a I statement, I am unlovable, but we have to work on it internally. It's our responsibility once we realize, wow, I'm reacting from this really vulnerable place. I am offended. I am hurt.
And it's interesting how many clients I have that will say, my partner hurt me because either they didn't do a love language or they're not doing a love language. It's important to recognize that when you make that kind of statement, you're displacing the ownership of your emotion. You're displacing the negative core belief that's inside of you and you're projecting it on your partner. They didn't hurt you. What hurt you was the negative core belief. Negative core beliefs hurt. So when they're activated inside of you, it's going to cause the pain. It's going to cause the reactivity. It's going to pull information and make it personal about you, and it's going to cause that hurt. But it's the negative core belief causing that, not your partner.
The last tip I would offer folks is to think about ways that you guys are connecting. A lot of times folks show up to therapy expecting that we only talk about all the bad things. We talk about things that are not working. We talk about the trauma and the negative memories, and we talk about all the hurt and the sadness. But then I say, let's do some resourcing. Resourcing is to process, install, really accept, highlight, and uplift positive moments. Can we think about moments where we are connecting and what is happening there with our partner? What is present? maybe there is a belief of like, when my partner is doing this, which is not aligned with how I receive love, I do feel connected in some way. And this is maybe how they express love to me.
Recognizing what your partner is doing that you're not noticing that they're showing you love is important. Advocating for yourself and talking about your preference is important. Listening to your partner on what their preferences are and seeing if you can meet some of those preferences, if not all of them. Just trying to meet them where they're at on their preferences is important too. Sometimes when your preferences don't align perfectly well and there's these different preferences, when our partner gives us feedback about a preference, sometimes if we have a negative core belief, sometimes when they give us feedback on their preference, the negative core belief is going to filter that information and you're going to take it personal again. And it's going to hurt. You're going to feel like, oh, see, I'm not good enough, or I'm doing a poor job of showing love because they have this preference and I'm not meeting it. We get reactive instead of just hearing that, no, you are good enough. You are a lovable person that's worth everything, right? You're important. And they're giving you a preference. So all they're doing is giving you kind of like an instruction manual for them. When they do that, treat it that way. Hey, here's an instructional manual on how they kind of operate. Cool. What better gift can they give you? So take it in and go, okay, can I do some of those things? How do I meet them there?
Because what happens when we aren't doing these things is I see the shame spiral that happens, right? So, boom, something happens, and then the negative core belief is very loud. The negative core belief is telling us something bad about ourselves. And then we start to go down this depressed, shame, dark spiral. And that is the detrimental part about when we turn love languages into expectations and weaponize it, not just against our partners, against our self-esteem. Sometimes this is the start or the trigger to a shame spiral.
In conclusion, the things to watch out for is if you're someone that enjoys the love languages, just be careful with them because sometimes they can feed the negative core beliefs. What happens is the brain has a negative core belief of something like, I'm unlovable. And then my partner's not doing my love language, so they don't love me. Or some of those behaviors I want to see aren't happening, therefore they don't love me, or I'm not important. When that happens, you're going to feel reactive. You're going to feel like it's personal. It's going to hurt. It's important to see that that's something inside of you, not your partner. When you can separate those things, then it's important to have assertive conversations and just recognize, what are my preferences? Can I communicate the preferences? Can I advocate for my preferences? And on the opposite side, when your partner is advocating about their preferences, can you hear them without being triggered yourself and meet them where they're at?
And I would say my takeaway is just, can we make room for both things to exist? That my partner may not do these things and they still love me and I am still loved. If you are finding yourself in a shame spiral and in a dark place, maybe review the events of that day to see if you committed one of these things, right? Maybe there is a thinking distortion here. Maybe there is emotional reasoning happening. I'm so upset and hurt, therefore my partner did hurt me. They caused me to be feeling this way. It's their fault. So, yeah, I would just say, just kind of slow down and do an analysis of what's causing you to be in this space of I'm not lovable.
None of this means you should tolerate cruelty, coercion, or abuse. If there's ongoing disrespect or harm, that isn't preference mismatch, that's a safety issue. Thanks for listening to The Spaghetti Wall. If today's episode stirred something in you, whether it was a fresh insight, a moment of reflection, or even just that feeling that you're not alone, you're right where you're supposed to be. Relationships are messy. So is healing, so is life. But that's where the magic happens. If you found this session helpful, consider sharing it with someone who might need it. And don't forget to subscribe for more real conversations about mental health, happiness, and how we keep going even when life gets tangled. Until next time, keep showing up, stay curious, and remember, the mess is the method.